Guys, welcome back to another video. We're doing something a little bit different this time. We're going to look at auditing the six again, potential change in amount or interpretation of or how to apply the six again rule in the NRL and what that means in terms of Supercoach. What, if anything, can we see or take away from it, and how could we possibly apply that to the run home rounds 20 to 27, both in a classic and draft context? This is prompted by the Rugby League eye test, who I'll link below. He is the leading advanced analytics person in the NRL. There's nothing in his work around Supercoach or anything, but yeah, he's the guy when it comes to data analysis and advanced statistics in NRL. He has a lot of proprietary stats and stuff, which is really cool, and it's quite aspirational. I'm just a regular bloke, so I can barely interpret some of the stuff he talks about, but what I can do is kind of use his markers and the metrics that he outlined and apply it to a Supercoach lens in my database. So that's what we're going to do today. We're going to talk about it. I guess when I actually first started recording this, I went off and spoke about it and went through this little data set and stuff that I've got here coming up in a second, which you'll see. And the more I thought and spoke about it and analyzed it, the more I realized that there's just too small of a sample from a Supercoach perspective to really go overboard on. There is some cool little trends and insights we can kind of capture and talk about, but it is the origin period that this has been happening. Rosters are reduced or changed or diminished. Teams are defending a little bit better. I mean, that's arguable, but in theory, they're fitter and there's more continuity by rounds 18, 17, 16, 15 in terms of they've been playing for, 14 plus rounds, as opposed to the first 7 rounds where, coming off preseason, people may not be as fit as they want to be. There could be people coming back from preseason injuries that are kind of working into a quality or a standard that they deem what they want to be or what they're trying to achieve, and things improve. Things also do change though with injuries dropping out. So you might say, oh, halfback scoring has come down. Well, when Nicho Hynes has been injured through that origin period and Nathan Cleary's been resting quite a bit, of course your two biggest and Adam Dewey was injured. So 3 of your leading, and Tanner Boyd got injured. So 3 of your leading halfback scorers and performers were basically not contributing to the halfback scoring channel, so to speak. So there's a big caveat around that before we even get into it, but it is still pretty cool. So let's dive right in, if this will let me. Six again. So six again's changed the whole landscape of Supercoach this season. A lot of people drafted a base-orientated team or picked in classic base-orientated players to initiate the season because of the statistics provider changing, where third tackles were counted and last passes were who got the try assist. So we thought there'd be an impact to spine players, predominantly halves, and fullbacks maybe not getting the last pass, attributed to them, and therefore diminishing not so much their ceiling, but just probably their overall scoring profile. It wasn't crazy, but it was enough to kind of influence our draft picks, let's be honest, especially for me. So restarts fell 31% after round 13, but the scoreboard barely blinked. The six again crackdown actually moved the needle for Supercoach, and then obviously spoke about how we want to talk about the final, like how we can apply that into the finals. What's interesting here, this is the same graphic with different data, because I originally ran this out of like all the players that played, but I needed to actually clean the data, so I went back and cleaned the data. So originally, you got your 31% reduction in set restarts per game taken from Rugby League eye tests data. That's pretty much all we took, because then we jump and do Supercoach stuff off it. So thanks again for him for prompting this thinking and giving us something to kind of work off. Supercoach scoring originally without cleaning, it was only down it wasn't even down, it was flat. Look at that data, like it's just a couple decimal places. And then halfback was down by nearly 10 points on average, which is huge, but I also spoke about who was out. Then I cleaned the data for only relevant players, right? And things were really different. Down 2.7% amongst those relevant players. Again, you go, 65 to 63, and you think that's not a lot. It kind of is when you think about a ceiling game where floors are pretty reliable. Most guys can kind of get to 40, 50, but it's really hard to get to 120. So that reduction's like pretty significant, I think. And then the biggest positional swing was actually hookers from 58 down to 50. So I did originally think that hookers got a benefit of it slowing down, but actually those close to the line, momentum, like type scoring, Supercoach stuff. So guys making line breaks off like 6 again, fast play the balls, guys being fatigued at marker and stuff, and then hookers diving over or getting try assists close to the line. I think that's where this plays out. Whilst they get maybe some more tackles with the game, kind of, obviously, you're going to say, oh, well, there's more ball in plays, more tackles, but it's the kind of tackles, it's a slower, there's more third man in when there's less 6 against type thing. That's my take on it, and the floor lifting in that way. We'll see if that plays out in the data as we go through this little deck here, but yeah, hookers take a huge hit, and I think that's also a little bit related to Brayley being injured, Grant having restings and limited minutes. So again, you see how murky it is from Supercoach perspective, but there's still some takeaways, so let's keep moving through. I spoke about why I didn't use the raw data. You can read this on the screen if you want. I'm not going to go crazy. Basically, 204 players qualified for what I wanted to do. Heaps and heaps of that raw scoring rows were bench players that were coming in, making it noisy, and then 2RF had a huge cull in that because a lot of bench players are like locks that are labeled 2RF or dual position front row 2RFs that play a couple of minutes off the bench, that sort of thing. So they took a bit of a hit in there. So like, for example, like, that's actually a bad example. I was going to use an example and it wasn't a good example, but yeah, that's sort of the cleaning component there. Overall impact on scoring up the top, the first kind of graph here is the pre-cleaned data. And I just highlighted the buy rounds because if rounds sort of 13 where there might have been a change, you can see set restarts per game is in orange. So we kind of see as a down, that wasn't the lowest point, but then we kind of dipped low here. And then we kind of came up and came down. But we can say overall there's your trend there. Supercoach scoring though, not really, there's not a huge relation. Like look at this, massive set restarts, average score quite low. Start of the season here, same deal. There's just doesn't look like a clear kind of pattern, but then when we clean the data, we see that shift, and I think we've felt that in Supercoach. I know a lot of people since round 12, round 13 have people that were winning lost a lot of games in a row, in my opinion. Not always. Draft is so complex, and then alternatively, people that were, especially in my league, were in the bottom half of the table have strung wins together because there's been an inversion, so to speak, where players that were carrying us at the start may be injured, origin or otherwise, and then there's been a shift here where some other players have kind of increased their scoring output. The real drop's 2.7% once you clean it up across relevant players, not the near zero as we mentioned. It's much smaller than the NRL's own points per game collapse, as per Rugby League eye test data 49 to 42.8. Supercoach rewards involvement, so we get that. There's something else here. The round level correlation with 6 again rate actually weakens slightly once cleaned, which tells us the real story isn't a single league-wide trends concentrated hard specific positions. Yeah, that's kind of what we'll get into, and that's the way I want this to be because I want to know where to prioritize key trades, targets, captaincies, that sort of thing. So that is what we sort of want to really hone in on. But this was just interesting seeing the difference in the two graphs. Top 3 positional takeaways. Hooker was the hidden story, so invisible in the raw data originally, but the single biggest mover on the board, and it only shows up once fringe hookers were removed, as you know. Slower ruck speed, this could be attributed. Slower ruck speed means fewer play the balls means fewer dummy half touches involved in stats. Yeah, I think it's about the upside plays, as I sort of mentioned. Look, I'm holding a pen like a freak. I just realized I never do that, but this is when, because I'm getting brainiacism. I should have written some notes or something, because I'm just kind of winging it, because when I tried to do this before with notes, it was just too robotic, and didn't want to do that. Halfback still hurting, but originally it was 13% and now it's 9%. But that's still a significant shift. But again, man, when your top guys aren't there pumping out those ceiling games, like even Jerome Hughes was flat, I'm not going to say it's a huge... I'm not going to go overboard on that. But I mean, it's still a bit, and there's obviously guys coming into teams that are still good, that still have a chance to hit upside, and it doesn't take much to score well. You can score 2 tries or, a couple of line break assists and a try assist, and you have a good score. So it's not everything, but it's just something to consider. Fullback, bigger loser than first thought. When the other direction once cleaned, and then genuine starting fullbacks lost more value than the raw data showed. Fewer repeat sets, means fewer kick return, counter-attack opportunities for the players who actually get those touches. Again, it's about those upside on the fatigue slicing through when edges are stripped short, more so than just pure line breaks from the back end. Positional takeaways originally, you can kind of see a shift. There's a gain in a lot of positions, but then when we switch it, it's a huge hit to other positions. The big one was, or not the big one, but the one interesting one is 2RFs taking a hit when cleaned, but getting a boon when it wasn't cleaned. Again, there's a lot more bench guys attributing there, and FRF was considered a huge benefactor or beneficiary, but now it's just to a minor degree 3% improvement for FRFs, and we don't want to put too much energy and time into talking about FRFs. The thing I just spoke about plays out here. This right 2RF, left 2RF swing, I can't really explain it. It could be to do with guns not being there. I'd say it's more just sort of variant stuff. But then you might say, well, left wing and left 2RF really benefiting. And this is at a really granular level. I'd have to spend more time on this to kind of understand more about it. But it is pretty interesting. And then you get a right winger, then right center's negative, then left center's negative. It's pretty interesting. Locks I expect to be pretty stable. Other takeaways sort of we touched on, 2RF and FRF, they flipped, so they were both positive and then came negative once we cleaned the data up. Props, as I said, holding pretty firm. Spine, as you can see, the top spine guys, that's the story. Because that's significant enough to me. That's anything over 5-6% in this world, I think is worth talking about and highlighting. Cleaning the data softened the original playmakers down, forwards up, story into something more useful, which is hooker, halfback, and fullback are the real losers. All 3 lost starters touches. I would call that actually upside touches, what I should have written. Props gain shrank from, as I mentioned, from the headline 6.8% to a modest 3.4%. Most of its old edge came from bench cover props scoring poorly pre-round 13 rather than genuine starters getting stronger. So that's the key there. That's a really good point. 5.8 and 2RF both flipped from mild gainers to mild losers once the fringe depth route was removed. The right 2RF footing is a huge positional shift, and that's also within starters. I'd need a bigger sample to make more sense of that, is kind of the takeaway there. Okay, what can we do applying this to the final stretch? Hooker deserves the most scrutiny, not props. Don't worry about the prop thing. That was in the pre-clean data. I think most people won't overinvest in hookers, and you'll just see your guns be guns, and the others are just going to fluctuate, in my opinion, to be less upside, I think, for fringe hookers if they don't change. If they don't further change 6 agains either way. Halfback and fullback still need a form-weighted lens. Both are genuine down, just less dramatically than the raw numbers suggested. Elite ball players retain skill-based ceiling regardless of ruck speed. That's totally true. I think we've seen that. The real dip is a buy low signal on a genuinely good player, not a permanent devaluation. That's totally true, and we've spoken about that, I think, to a degree in buy low, sell highs. Again, that sentence on props is not a huge one. It was that the original data was screaming buy props. I don't know if you should. Right 2RF is the sleeper story. 14% shift among real starters is one of the largest moves in this data set. And in the raw pass, it wasn't evident. Instead, there was a boon. But when we looked at the starters, there was a huge hit. And then worth a dedicated look at your own right 2RF options before finals prep locks in. That's interesting. I mean, you've got Ola Kawatu. You've got Lucas on the left, who's dominant. We've seen... Who have we seen? We've seen someone like KPP was a right guy that wasn't there. We saw Preston delivering right side scores that wasn't there. David Fafita's been on the right. He's been going okay. Then he had a low game, which was minutes impacted, but it still logs as a starter. I'm trying to think of some other guys. Jordan Ricky has only just come back for the Broncos and hasn't been what he was. So I can see that it's a not always 6 again related outcome. Someone like Halem Lukey, right, hasn't had Tom Dearden, and that's Tom Dearden wasn't there for halfback scoring. So I'm going to pin most of the halfback stuff to injuries, frankly. When we really I've listed 4 to 5 guys that were killing dude up to round 10. So from round 13 onwards, to say that the 6 again's impacted halfbacks, I don't think is valid. Whereas like the 2RF stuff, missing, guys not performing well as a result of missing their halfback is defensible, and also origin restings and minutes plays like Finafuiaki's dipped. They may just be guys that have dipped if players prefer passing right to left or whatever it is. Now that you don't have the momentum going right, 14% is significant, dude. I think under 10, under 8, above 5, we can talk about. We can kind of, talk about the mitigating factors. Over 10 into this near 15% shift is interesting, really interesting. Not to say I would be doing anything with my current ones, but, as it says here, I'm just taking a look at it and maybe getting a bit of a balance of right, so you don't have 3 right to RFs potentially. Hedging against a reversion or a further clamp down. So if they go back to what it was pre-13, or if they get even more tight with it, they all snap back if there was full 6 again tailspin like there was to initiate the season. Yeah, 3 clearest recovery plays. Yeah, so don't trade away genuinely its elite starters. If it tightens even further, CTW and prop keep the edge modestly. Both showed a real, if small, and first thought gain under the low restart environment. If restarts keep falling, lean slightly further into structured attacking width and forward carries rather than chasing broken play upside. Totally my takeaway too if it got tighter. How do I interpret that takeaway into like real players? I don't think much changes. I still want a good blend of like try scoring upside wingers and like base with upside centers. I think that's just pretty standard. And props, yeah, if there's going to be less broken play, then I want my base upside props like Kaloma Tungis, May with the offloads, who had a bad game last night minutes wise, so I'm not going overboard on him. And then like your Payne Haas, I would love like a guy that can score a line break after making 45 tackles and running for 150 meters. Bang. That doesn't also, that was never not the case, but it was really like, oh my God, like, if there's not enough base work rate, these guys need to hit upside. Now we could be seeing heaps of third tackling guys can be getting 50 tackles attributed to them, and then anything else takes their score into a real serious situation. This is sort of your caveat stuff, like 5-round signal. Yeah, like if I did this, I'll do, like if I wanted to do this in 3 more weeks, I won't, because by then we're probably like round 22, round 23, it's finals. It's just, it's hell for leather then. And I know a lot of people won't be in contention, so viewing content's probably not at the top of their list, but that's probably what you'd have to do. What I would say is they're not going backwards overall next year. So in next year's drafts, we really want to make sure, and in Classic and setting up our teams in Fantasy, NRL Fantasy and Classic, we are still, I think, prioritizing guys that have some ceiling in your edge positions specifically, because they're not going to go back from this level because they love the try scoring and the speed of the game and the stuff like that. They want it to be an entertaining product. I've had conversations with people from overseas that like watch, football full time as their, their version of NRL. They love their FPL, Fantasy Premier League, and they're watching football, and they've caught some rugby league in the State of Origin or whatever, and they've gone, oh, it's awesome right now. There's so much going on, and momentum is rewarded. Like if you're like what they're saying, the 6 again, like you can't strategically, like do slowing down, and then the 6 again allows the game to play, so the whistle isn't blown and they're stopped, which is what happens in football, the strategic fouling and stuff to stop counter-attacks and momentum shifting, and that really opened my eye. And I don't think we see the NRL go back, so we can plan and draft accordingly. That's going to do it with this 6 again audit team. Something different, something unique. Just wanted to use some numbers we had in provided to us by an expert, such as NRL Rugby League eye test, and then the database stuff. If there's anything else like this, like if you really enjoy this unique kind of video of trying to keep it under 20 minutes, I appreciate that. One other thing I will quickly show you. You would have seen this on socials and everywhere else, guys. It is a free on the Draft Oracle website. Just hit Finals Outlook. It is a free finals data dashboard. So you can do the run home 20 to 27, which I've been speaking a lot about. You can pick smaller windows for drafters or head-to-head players. And then we've got power rankings here. So if you just do 20 to 27, you've got all your teams ranked. That'll update each week, guys, as we get the new data. You can click each team to get a couple of different stories about that team, all right? Pure strength of schedule is defensive weakness. So for example, Will Kennedy is versing a collective 67.8 defensive conceding average score, which is rank 1 of other 17 fullbacks in that slot. Where there's duplicate names, I just want to show the option. So if you know Jesse Ramian got injured, Sifis Talakai might be the pickup and has a rank 1, just to kind of help you guys planning. Now, people that love my data or like a bit of a balance, like so some modeled data, you just click modeled with form and it comes through and just shows you with a little bit more analysis. And so 67.8, rank 14, blah, 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 has a bit more nuance to it where we incorporate like the performance of recency and stuff like that with the modeled data. You can do all those teams. You can do players specifically for those windows. I think I've got roughly 5 per slot. When it loads, very annoying. Very, very annoying. The fuck? Sometimes the old girl's a little slow getting all this data sorted, but here is the 5-player capture. That's just like raw, again, SOS. If people don't want any modeled influence, this is just straight up. And then advanced is just, now we're talking modeled with the form. So like obviously Will Kennedy is not a like relevant player, but Kalen Ponga definitely is. So he kind of ascends up. So in that 20 to 27, you're like, quote unquote, ideal fullbacks are these 3. But we know a bit more than just the pure data. So we go, yeah, I'll take Tom Trbojevic over Dylan Edwards, right, personally. Because it's classic. I can trade him out if he gets hurt. Draft, though, if I had Kinney, I might say, I mean, these are pretty close values, don't get me wrong. But like, you know, if you could sell Kinney to get Suafa'alongo, you might say that value's worth it. Obviously, as a buy and stuff, but I'm just trying to give you some ideas. So this is your modeled stuff in advanced. I just wanted to keep it clean because some people just love like pure defensive weakness. I like to know, is it a good player playing a bad defense? That's a bit more important. And then you can go through each window and do the same 3 things. And then power rankings are just straight up using the full run home window, players, model data, who are the guys to have. So Sua jumps Kalen Ponga, you know, you got Jenko. So you like, according to the data, you're like top 5 CT dubs is like Chance, Murray, Cobbo, and Jenkins. You're going to say, well, why Luke Laulii here? You know, I know he's with the Warriors. This is from my player database for the Draft Oracle and stuff, so you're just going to get some weird stuff popping up. Like, it's because he was going that well in his small sample, and then he's versing all this opportunity. He gets a great sort of, you know, statistical profile, but it's not really true, is it? But we can just use common sense, team. You'll get a few of those, but not so much. So just jump on here. It's completely free. Play around. I've also got all the other stuff you need, like forecasting, scoring map has all that sort of stuff, weekly top matchups there. So this is all just free on the site. It's obviously, if you want to go into the Oracle, then you click sign in and get started. It's a bit different, but I want to show all people that are interested in this data stuff that this is all free for your use to kind of have a little bit more fun on the run home. The beauty of this is if you're out of contention, you can grab some of these pod guys. This is a pod factory. It's a pod farm. You're going, dude, I'm going to get Phil Sami. No one's got Phil Sami for the run home in my head-to-head comp. You know, you can get spicy off the data here. It does update weekly. So these names do change, so don't cry if you come in on round 22 after looking at round 19 and go, where's Phil Sami? Well, if he played poorly or the teams he's gonna play started defending better, right? changes his mix and therefore he drops out. So it is kind of live per week, obviously, so you can make trades according to what's going on. You'll see some guys not drop out. Herbie's too darn good to never be in the power rankings for left center, basically, unless injured. So anyway, check that out. Link to this in the bio too. So Rugby League Eye Test, thank you so much. Check him out in the bio. Check out the Draft Oracle page. And if you just like this kind of content, a like, a comment, whatever you can offer me, I really appreciate it. Thanks so much, guys. Have a great weekend.